And our second round came in from we went off course a bit. We didn't follow the Series A, Series B type of style. We went off course a bit, and we got an investment from a strategic partner, which is a public listed company. This is because it's public listed. You can Google and find out who they are. But I can't talk about who they are. So pretty much, it's two different. I mean, each time it was two different experiences altogether. The things that was involved was very much different as well. So I think do I need to elaborate on what happened
maybe
each round?
was it in any way connected to one another? Like, did TIC introduce you to that public listed company?
No.
It's completely separate.
I think when we started this, I was very naive. I didn't know. To be honest with you, there was no such thing as a MaGIC Academy, right? Let's just put it that way. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So the traditional way, or the naive way of doing things back then was, I'm going to go and see a telco. I've got this brilliant product, and I think they're going to like it. And soon enough, you'll probably know that the telcos are not very, or any big companies in Malaysia, they're not very startup friendly. So they'll tell you to get lost very quickly. So then, of course, as a startup, you've got no choice to go to, as a banking facility would not be a choice for you, right? Because you don't have any credit record, for example. So then I got a little bit smarter and tried to sniff around for grants. Doing that was also difficult because when you are the first, or if you've got a product that people don't understand, it's going to be difficult for you to sell that idea. And the people that normally govern grants, they are administrators, they're not really technopreneurs themselves. So it might be a bit hard for them to digest whatever that you're trying to pitch, you know? So that also went down the drain. It didn't work out for me. So we were running on air for quite some time. I mean, most of that's the glamorous side. The non-glamorous side of it is that the fact that, you know, I had to fork out a lot of my savings, remortgage this and that, whatnot, to keep the company surviving. And one day, the VC, T Capital, actually approached us. We didn't know. I didn't even know what a VC was. I didn't even know what Series A, Series B, whatever, you know, I didn't know. So they came in and said, look, what you guys are doing is something similar to Amazon. And I was like, yep, exactly it, you know. So we met up with them. They liked our idea and so forth. 4 months later, you know, went through like due diligence and all that sort of process. 4 months later, the money came in. And from there, we started growing. You know, I mean, obviously, you need to calculate how much money you need and all that sort of thing so that you know how much money you need to ask for. And then you double that because you're definitely just going to get half of it, right? So let's say you need 1 million, you say you need 2 million, okay? Because you're going to get 1 million anyway. So you do that, and then that would keep you surviving, okay? And then when you need to start generating revenue, though. If you don't generate revenue immediately, then it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain, right? When we came to our second round, it was a point where we didn't really need that second round. Okay, we didn't need money actually. I mean, I was arguing with a lot of people about, look, you should go and take up Series B, go regionally and all that sort of stuff. But I said, look, if the market's not ready, it's not going to be right. So the Series B came in when some of the projects that we did was of high interest to this particular company. So they came in and said, look, we want a stake. And we were like, you know, I'm not too comfortable about giving a lot of stakes away. So they took in a small stake, but it gave a huge evaluation to the company, right? The valuation was high. So we are looking more at strategic partnership whereby it's not just an investment, it's not just about corporate compliancy in the company, but also bringing in business for the company. So this is what we're working on with this particular new partner of ours. So roughly that's the story. I mean, if I'm going to tell you in detail, I think 2 days is not going to be enough, but you know.
That's great. So basically, you're really lucky. The VC just like fell on your lap.
Yeah, in that sense, yes. You know, because I think that. Can I just comment one more thing?
Sure thing.
The thing with VCs is the problem is this: there's not many in Malaysia. There's a lot more in Singapore, right? And a lot of VCs. I'm not sure if there's VCs in it.
I think they're all at the speed dating, so you
Okay,
can
great.
safely
Yeah.
talk now.
They're quite arrogant. Okay, so when that's the case, you can't really hard sell to them because nobody likes hard selling, lah. You know. So the best is that you need to have a product and make that product speak for itself. And somehow or other, lah, you so-called fabricate a way that they can get notice of you and come to you. That would work. If you go and hard sell, pitch or whatever, you know, there's always faults, lah. You know, there's always faults. So it's a lot harder if you go directly to them. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I think people share your sentiment as well about VCs being evil. You know how we have this Star Wars theme, so I'm like a stormtrooper. So the VCs, they're actually Yoda, but someone was saying that they should be Darth Vader. So maybe, Shan, you can take your turn as well, explaining.
Okay.
Same question.
So imagine 12 months ago, all I had was a 25-page PowerPoint. We thought we had the greatest idea ever. And you know, we're going out and we decided we needed to speak to 100 investors for us to get funded. That was our goal, okay? So nearest hanging fruit, talk to friends, families, friends' fathers, you know. Generally, the ecosystem here is, if they're gonna give you cash, they're gonna take like 50% of your company, okay? So friends, family is a great way to practice. I just suggest you don't take that money, okay? You know, get you to build your skills, okay? So eventually, I think around about my 30th or 40th guy, I bumped into an ex-client of mine who liked the dream that we wanted to build, and we got our first investor in, okay? So just to give you a bit of background, I'm from the advertising, digital advertising market, 15 years veteran. So to tell a client that I'm giving up 15 years was a wow to them. So they get interested in why you pursuing something new. So once we got that first client, then you go to their friends and their family and their business network and you build on that. Eventually, I lucked out because I bumped into an old industry friend. He runs Control Shift. So he says, I'll back you, but you gotta do delivery for my wife who has a florist. And I said, man, florist, if I mess up, I can't replace the flowers. He says, no, you want my money, you go do the florist, okay? So this florist is Happy Bunch. Happy Bunch, back in the day, was doing like 5 deliveries a day. So we hired the runners, you know, got like IKEA boxes, put holes in it so the flowers could breathe, so on and so forth. And today, they fully outsourced to us. They're doing over 200 flowers a day, and they're our largest client, you know. So that's where kind of luck opportunity met, and we finally found a serious VC. So from there, we picked up a few other clients, and then our clients started talking about us to the VC community. So we have a client called Rent a Dress. So Shren spoke to CMY Capital and said, hey, you got to check these guys out because now when we're outsourcing to them, we don't really have to worry about logistics. So I get Chua Simon coming to me and says, do you need investors? I said, sure. So we got along really well, and you know, that story, the investment round, I think it took about 2 weeks, and he cut us a check. And then I was looking for my final guy. So the final guy, I wanted like a proper VC that everybody will know. And the most well-known guy I know was Kylie from 500 Durians. So at Tech in Asia, I stalked his ass, and I went there and said, dude, I've got 7 investors. I need you to be my 8th. Can we make it happen? And luck again, he's my 8th investor, 500 Durians.
Very nice. So both of you seem to be really lucky. I'm not sure whether this is a good representation for all of you in the crowd. Yeah, a lot of other founders tell very longer, sadder stories of like trying to knock on a lot of doors.
I can tell you the 88 sad stories to get the good 8, right?
So along the way, I guess as well, your pitch would have been refined as well as you had a lot of success, like credentials backing you up. Like so happened by chance, delivering for Happy Bunch, and then
Okay, so
which ended up being your number one
in
client.
my 9 months, so we closed what I called a pre-seed round. I still don't know how they call the rounds, by the way. Okay, so I did a pre-seed round. I did a bridge round just to give me a runway until the end of the year, and I'm now closing what I'm calling my seed round. Okay, so in 9 months, the kind of learning curve was pretty sharp, and the seed round you obviously deal with all the heavy duty, 20-page term sheet kind of VCs who is rough. So my advice to you guys is get a good lawyer. Not many around. MaGIC's working on kind of getting a panel of lawyers. Read a lot. Like if you are already looking for money, you probably bumped into something called a SAFE by Y Combinator. That's like a simple agreement for future equity. Unfortunately, that thing can't be used in Malaysia. It's a great document, but it cannot be used. But it gives you the basis of what a fair agreement should look like. So have a look at that, SAFE by Y Combinator, and move on from there.
Yep, he did mention about the panel of lawyers. So yeah, MaGIC's launching as well this ASEAN Center for Entrepreneurship in November officially. Right now we are soft testing some of it, so we are lining up panels of lawyers, accountants, company secretaries, things like that, really to help you set up your business. And I'm sure they would have appreciated having these kind of services around.
Still do?
Still do, yep, that's great. So in the meantime as well, let MaGIC, or you can ask Chan if you need referrals for lawyers and all that. So Faiz, earlier you did mention that you have to start generating revenue. So just to be clear, were you already generating revenue before the VC came in?
Oh, no, definitely not. I think the product that we were working on was something for the future. So, I mean, the product was for the future market. That was not, the landscape was not ready yet for in Malaysia, So, what is important about generating revenue is that the moment that you start generating revenue, then whatever track record that you have will count in for whatever that you want to do in the future, whether if it's Series B or you want to go for further investment or you want to stay sustainable itself. I mean, there's nothing wrong in that as well, So at the point when we got the first round of funds, definitely we were not making money, but it was, how would I say, the story that we sold was something that, it's going to be big, So this is the thing that you need to take in count. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever that you pitch to the potential investor or to the potential partner that you have, your pitch or your paperwork or your business plan is just that, It's just, bits of articulated action that you do. What's more important is the passion, because your investor would want to see how passionate you are about this business of yours, because that's the thing that would drive the whole business through. If you're not passionate, if you're just, I want to do this, I think it's good, but at the same time, I've got this going on, that going on, and all that sort of stuff, I think that would probably make a lot of investors walk away. So it's crucial that you have passion of what you do. I mean, you're willing to, let's say, give up a lot of things to make this thing work. And that is the thing that would make them feel secure about parking their money with your company. So, I mean, I don't know if I've answered your question.
But then, so I'm assuming that, once you signed the papers, you did agree on certain milestones, which did include revenue. So was that, how's the process of negotiating that? And do you think that, it was very fair?
I don't know how other VCs work. I mean, different people, I mean, I've heard in the US, they're more relaxed and stuff like that. But with us, there were milestones. And the milestones, part of it were revenue. Part of it were so-called some impossible things that you can't do without money. And then now I'm giving you money, let's make that happen, So you do have that. The milestone is good to basically drive the company or so-called shape the company in the way that it's going to move forward, But having said that, when you start becoming more matured, there won't be any more milestones. You have to create your own milestones,
Maybe since the audience is a little earlier, they may not be that familiar. So if, for example, I take the money and I don't hit my milestones, what happens? Like, do they take all their money back?
In our case, we agreed to, I mean, like the investors agreed to park in this sum, right? This sum of money. And then I'm going to give 1/3 of this sum when you hit the first milestone, and I'm going to give back this amount of shares when I achieve or when I get that money. So let's say if you fail to hit the second milestone or the third milestone, then it means that you won't get that last round of funds, and they won't get that last round of shares, but then they're going to give you hell. Because, you know, look, you've kind of so-called breached the agreement, or you haven't fulfilled whatever that you promised and stuff like that. So I think that's important because in any case, it's got a lot to do with human. The techie part, the sexy story that you want to sell is just 10% of it. 90% is human, okay? So human element, you want to have partners that can work with you, that can negotiate, that can argue with you, and yet go out with for a drink with you, you know? So you can't afford to have a bad start. Well, the moment you have a bad start, then that's going to shape the way things are going to be, you know? I don't know again if
great.
I...
Yes, I have a question.
Are you looking for why they invested in us? Okay. Okay. All these pitch sessions, I know they give you like a grid, you know, why, what's the promise, what's the secret sauce, blah, blah, blah. Okay. When you deal with an investor, you're dealing with cash. It's about cutting them a deal. Okay. If they put $1 million in you, for whatever the valuation, don't worry about the valuation. If they're putting $1 million, they want to know when they're going to get their 5x, 10x. So if you just build your cap table by providing each round of investors, say a minimum of 5x, and you can ask the investor, what's your goal? If it's 5x, then build your entire cap table based on 5x, and then you know the deal you need to cut. That's one approach. I've used that approach because from my background, it's all about cutting the deal, right? You're giving me $1 million, what's the deal? Okay, and we work from there. I had the opportunity to go to at Stanford, okay, and they have a completely different approach, which I am now adopting, which is, if you're a PowerPoint, you need to get a product that can be sold. So productize your idea, okay? If your idea needs $1 million, you must raise $1 million. You cannot just say, I've only got 500,000, I'm going to take that first. Because you will just end up failing. So raise the full $1 million, okay, and cut the deal that you need to cut, okay? Most of the time, a VC will take 20-30% on the first round. That means PowerPoint to product, okay? So that's a good kind of gauge. Forget valuation, okay? Because if I asked you, if you had an idea now, how much is your idea worth? A lot of you will go, $2 million US, $5 million US, $10 million US. Nobody's getting those valuations, so just chuck it in the corner. A VC is most of the time reasonable. They'll just take 20 to 30. Some will take a 25 because they're betting on you, giving them a 5x return in X time. So that is your runway. I hope I answered your question.
Sorry, I can't remember. I only remembered one part of the question. Sorry.
How far along was your product? Sorry, I think.
See. Yeah, I can hear you. Don't worry. Yeah.
So how far along was the product?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm.
How big was your staff strength?
Mm-hmm.
An idea, what investors were looking at.
Okay. Right. So I think at the time when we raised our first round, it was a sample, if I can say it was a sample, because we had a working product. We had the infra running already. It was proven, it's gone through all that, and it's already got customers, but it's how would I say, it's too small, okay? But at that particular time also, your burn rate is very, very small because you only had like 3 or 4 people in the team, right? So you need to tell them, okay, look, I need to get here, and you need to magnify this, and how then would I do that, and how much do I need, So from there, they will then calculate whether if your proposition is something that is worthwhile looking into, or it's unrealistic, or this, that, whatnot, So then you're going to start negotiating. But I think typically, let's say if you've got a business that's running well, is making money and all that sort of stuff, you can go to a bank. It's less hassle, You can only go to investors because they're willing to gamble at you, and because banks won't take a gamble, right? So at the end of the day, I don't think they expect you to come to see them making money, and I've got 50 people working behind my back, because they would see that as a recipe for disaster, right? So they are expecting guys who are trying to do everything with a very small team initially. And of course, the burning rate, it can be as big as you want, or it can be small, but definitely there will be burning rate initially. I don't know if that answered, yeah.
Yep, so I think basically both of them, it's okay, echoing pretty similar points. Basically, I'll get to you in a second. Where VCs, they are looking to gamble out of the how many, 10, 20, whatever bets that they take, they're expecting on, one guy to cover the losses for the rest. And yeah, very good advice. So I think we will take, your question?
I just want to add in from this part, whereby I understood that your first VCs you doesn't actually generate any significant revenues. So what sort of actually fact and figure of determining factors that you actually sell to VC in order to get it wrong without revenue?
You mean at the time when you were...
you generated your first round, you were
right.
mentioning, without any significant revenue.
Why did Teak want to invest in you? Is that right?
Yeah,
if you didn't have
it's dollars and cents. It's dollars and cents. They'll look at your proposition. They'll say, okay, within 5 years, I'm going to make this much. I'm going to pay you back this much, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, it makes sense. How are you going to do it? Okay, it makes sense. How this? Okay, it makes sense. How much you're going to spend? Okay, it makes sense. And then they will put in, So it's about dollars and cents at the end of the day. If you're going to say something, look, this is great. It's going to help people. How much money are you making? No, not much. Oh, okay, see ya, It's not going to happen. So at the end of the day, they are a business as well. So they need to get back their ROI for whatever that they've pumped in. Of course, it's more risky. There's no collateral or anything like that for them. So in that sense, they'll tie you up to a certain agreement to get you going, in hope that you can get back that ROI for them. So I don't know if there are any clear rules on this, but it just depends on your negotiation with the party that wants to invest in you. I mean, like I said, if your business is doing great, you don't need investors. Why would you need investors?
So Sean, do you agree as much, Faiz, that it's so much purely on dollars and cents, or do you think a lot of it played into the team, the rapport and the trust, the relationship that you had with the investor?
I think the term the VCs use is traction. You got to show that you are moving, getting momentum. So, have you heard of this app called Yo? It's an app
Yo.
that all it does is say Yo. That's it. So I send a message Yo to you, you send a message Yo to me. Okay, that's it. I think it's got something silly like 100 million users or something. So when we were in the US, we were at Product Hunt, and the founder of Yo was at the gym. So being a startup, I had to go there and says, Yo, how is it that a product that seemingly does not make sense, okay, but had huge traction, 100 million people use the product, so that is value. 100 million people bothered to download your stuff, okay? That is what you can take to the bank, okay? In my case by the time I raised funds, I had like 30 bikes on ground doing about 100 deliveries a day. That was traction, It's small, but it was better than zero. It's better than you still being in a PowerPoint. So try and get a product out as soon as possible. Get your friends and family to sign up for a mailing list. Get them to download. And just show them traction.
And I think it's also important to point out that the traction, you have to show it over what duration. Obviously, if it's 3 years down and you're still having 50 bikes, 30 bikes, and they want to see that you can grow, not just grow, but quickly as well.
Yeah, so you try and use benchmarks, right? So, us trying to find out post-Malaysia's fleet size was a bit of a pain. Thankfully, we ended up bumping into post-Malaysia at MaGIC, and we says, what's your nationwide fleet size? Oh, it's 1,400 bikes. So if I have 150 in KL, are we same? You're about the same. So, so you start using benchmarks like that, and then you take that to the investor. It's all about showing your growth. Like, you're not sitting still, And if you have good investors, they will not allow you to sit still. And that's why we raised the bridge round, because I told investors I have burn rate. If I do not increase the fleet, I have burn rate until X. So should I stop growing or should I continue? And they said, hell no, You got to keep growing as fast as you can. So we're adding 50 guys every month, and they throw money at you. As long as you can just keep moving, we're adding 50 new runners every month.
I think generally the VCs here or overseas or whatnot, what they're looking for is a high growth business. I mean, let's say if they want to invest in a slow growth business, they'll go to hotels, like I'll invest in a hotel, I'll make that money back in 12 years or whatnot. So they're looking at, high growth. In 3 years, what's the valuation of the company? So the valuation of the company comes in many forms. I mean, back in the days, it used to be how much money you can generate. There's a machine, this machine can produce this much money. But nowadays, like what you said just now, people's accounts, people's usage, and all that sort of stuff also carry what we call digital asset or digital value. So that brings in a valuation for the company as well. So VCs are not there for the long run. They're not like banks. They are looking for high growth type of business. So you need to give them that sort of story, like what Shan said, the traction, what type of, how fast you can make this move, and, how quick is it for them to get out. That would be more important as well.
Faiz, I also wanted to ask you about, you mentioned the strategic partner that invested in your company, and what kind of channels, how did it actually help you in other ways, and not just the money, since you said you weren't looking for money at the time?
Okay. It's like this. I don't know. In Malaysia, for example, when you do business, B2B, business to business, for example, you need to have connections. Because for you to build that reputation, for example, or the trust will take a long time. You can knock doors, as many doors as you want, but things will move very, very slowly. So it's always nice if you have a bigger brother that can just say, look, okay, I've got keys to this department, to this agency, to this corporate sector and all that sort of stuff. And it would speed up the whole process. So at the end of the day, it's, that's the challenge of being a technopreneur, the fact that, okay, you've got to have all this seeding story and the first rounds, raising funds and all that. But once you have the funds to make things grow faster, you actually need jobs. You actually need contracts and whatnot. So to get that, sometimes people share that value, but most times they'll say, you're insane, you're crazy, go away, So what makes that work for you is basically, some sort of somebody that can actually recommend you. So when that happens, that's when it makes life for you a bit easier. Otherwise, if you're going to knock there, the local will say cable, but not in the hanky-panky way, in a friendly way, Right? So let's say if there are people that could actually say, look, okay, I can bring in this sort of business for you and make you grow faster, then, that's an option that you really need to think about.
Sounds like a very good partnership. Were there other corporates or other investors that did try to come to you with similar propositions that you turned down?
Yep. The hanky-panky ones also came, all sorts, right? So you just need, at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, what is it that you want to do and how are you going to do it? You know, so that's the problem in Malaysia. I mean, there's a lot of things that are nonsense. You know, you got to stay away from that. So the moment that you get that sort of element to come in, then it would definitely shape how your business is going to be like. So when you are talking about strategic partnership, you need to make sure that your partner is 100% business. They are money or profit-driven company and stuff like that. So that's the most important thing that you want to consider, you know.
And Sean, you mentioned as well that you were desperately looking for your 8th investor. Were there people that came to you but that you didn't just want to go with?
Yes, I think that's probably a key point I want to make. The 9 months since I started, the ecosystem's kind of bloomed right now, right, or growing rapidly, and you will get a lot of bad money kind of approaching you. So I would urge you as an ecosystem to start vetting the investor as much as they vet you as a startup. Okay, so come to one of us who have raised money before. What do you think of this investor? Share your term sheets so you get a kind of secondary opinion on what you're signing up for. I know it seems strange for you guys to do it, but that's the best way to protect yourselves. Okay. Again, we were lucky because every one of our investors, our criteria was we got to get along, we got to have chemistry. You got to like them, you got to want to pop over their house, have dinner. That's the kind of relationship we have with our investors. They have saved us twice from a very, very bad deal from big name VCs, who kind of wanted to shaft us when we were raising money. So yeah, sharing is the best way you can protect yourself.
That's awesome. I'm going to open it up to the floor. Do you have, yep.
Hi, my question is for Shan. Just now you mentioned that you have 8 investors. So we understand that if you get investment in, you're actually exchanging your company shares with the investors. So I'd like to understand what is the rationale behind that makes you get so many investors, like 8? Yeah.
Joke is maybe because I'm only child, I like a lot of people, but the theory back then was it was easier to find 8 guys who will part with X amount of cash than one guy who will give me the whole sum. That was my thinking when I started, okay? Which is also why I set myself a goal. I'm going to talk to 100 investors. A lot of them are in this room, okay? So we just pounded doors and said, can you give me X? So that's why it was 8. The second thing, which I think worked in our favor, but it was a post-rationalization, is each of those 8 gave us connections to a lot of other strategic businesses. So one gave us connections to banks, one gave us connections to other e-commerce stores. So having 8 guys, 8 big brothers, better than one. That was our logic.
Hi guys. Actually, I just have one question regarding the investors. I think you do make a good point. We don't just do business with any investors, but the questions would be, how would you choose an investor? Like, what are the important criteria? Is it their history, or is it the budget that they have, or the connections that they have?
Is it for anyone in particular? You can try.
I'm not the best person to answer that one because the first time I signed up, yes, it was desperate times. It's like you sign or you die. Okay, so I can't really say, I'm going to analyze, I'm going to choose this one. Maybe you don't have that sort of choice, right? But if you do have that sort of, the first and foremost, you need to look at the term sheet. What is it that they're offering you? What are their requirements? How is their exit plan as well, right? If there are things like RCPS, I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's a redeemable preference shares, right? Things like that. How much is the premium and all that sort of stuff. That's the first component. That's the business side of things, okay? And then you also need to see whether if these people do care about you or not. If they don't care about you, then why do you want them to be your parents, right? So you got to see whether if they are interested in what you're doing, whether they're going to so-called coach you. You know, sometimes they say if they're going to kick your ass or not, you know. That's important because that's the thing that will drive you the moment that you're going to get a bit, how would I say, off focus, okay? So you can have guys that come in and pump in money into your company and then they'll have a meeting with you twice a year asking back what's the progress. That's not what you want, actually. You want people that can advise you in a lot of things. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. When I started this, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an engineer. I am not an accountant, for example. So like, you know, how do you make your company at any time audit ready, right? With our investor, they made us to be that way. Okay, at any time, anybody wants to do duty or anything, we are always ready. Okay, because of the discipline that they enforced on us. So these are the things that's important. And I'm telling you, it is not easy. And you don't choose an investor because that guy is buddy-buddy with you, you know? Like, oh, I think I like this guy. He's a funny guy. You know, it's not going to add value to your company. You need to find people who are serious, who knows what they're doing, and that they are sincerely wanting to help you. Because as an investor, they can't really help much in your business because they don't know. You know, the best person to know your business is yourself, right? But they can, you know, kind of give a third opinion or a reality check on you. So that's important because it's not just about giving money and then making magic so that the money will grow. It doesn't happen that way. So these are the things that I think if you have the luxury to assess, please do it. Yeah.
Anything to add, Sean?
Why don't you ask your follow-up question?
I'm so sorry. Regarding the point about the buddy-buddy, right? So what is your
Regarding
thoughts
the what?
about having a friend as an investor?
You might lose that friendship if things go to pot, you know?
Same as family.
Yeah. As much as friends and family are the easy money, I would urge you not to, okay? And the reason being, the good money is money that is defined as, one, they are prepared to lose it, okay? So they already know betting on you is God. They're not going to remind you during Christmas, hey, you know, you took 100,000 from me. That's one, okay? Two is they can give you more money, okay? Once you go to friends and family, it's pretty much done. They're not, once you grow 5x, they're not going to reinvest in you, okay? So that's the second. Third is, can they introduce you to other like-minded investors? You know, because they like to invest as a group as well. You know, kind of mitigate risks among themselves. When they do due diligence, they kind of share notes. What do you think? Is this risky or not? So you are as much choosing them as they are choosing you. So give yourself choice. Speak to as many people as possible. Because if you only got one date, you're more likely they're not going to accept it. You know, so try and speak to as many people as you can, and get them to kind of tell you, what do you think of guy A? What do you think of guy B? You know, should I accept guy A? Do you think that term is fair? And play them on each other. And again, use the ecosystem here because everyone's talking to the same guys. Use this ecosystem here and figure out why they're offering you different deals from the other guy. You know?
Any more questions? You need to raise your hand so that I can see. Maybe I'll go first. There's also some talks now about the whole startup valuation bubble deflating and how it's going to get a lot tougher, you know, to get decent valuations and to raise money in the future. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Or do you see it happening already, or do you think it's going to hamper your future fundraising rounds?
Okay. Again, understanding the ecosystem, right? So the sheer amount of funds that have come out have, I think, doubled or tripled just this year, okay? So with more funds means these guys are chasing the same amount of deals. So when you have competition, you get overvalued, okay? What you want to do to protect yourself is, again, always go back to your milestones. Can you deliver 5x to that investor? Okay, what is that 5x based on? If you can secure that, then be bold and confident to raise whatever you need, okay? Don't worry about the bubble because you have the fundamentals to support your valuation. But if you are raising because some guy says you're worth 100 million, here, take 10 million, and you're not so sure because you're trying to be a Snapchat or a Yo or one of those, I don't know how to play that game. Like I've even told my investor who invested in Snapchat, I will pay money to hear their Skype call and telling me how they're valued and what they're valued. You know, I want to know how do you sell that, because at zero revenue and that kind of valuation, it's a completely different game of skill, which I'm not exposed to.
And we don't see so much of that over here. Yeah.
Not yet.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think raising funds for some people, for some entrepreneurs, is an art. You know, it's an art. It's something that they can be good at. There are two, I always say that there's two types of entrepreneurs. There's one that will evaluate things quickly and go to the next round, and then Series C, post IPO, pre-IPO, and then IPO, and then post-IPO. Those sort of people are, you got to be very careful with how they do things. You know, like let's say if you do go big in terms of your valuation, and then suddenly nobody is there to take you up when you go to Series C and so forth, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble. Okay, that's one type of entrepreneurs. There's also the other type who, if you give money and they are worried, they get very, very, they can't sleep at night because they're worried about this trust or whatever. I'm more of that type lah. You know, you give me 1 million, I'll get worried, you know, because it's not my money. If it's my money, then I won't be worried, of course, right? So it all depends on what you want to do. I think with all these stories of how sexy technopreneurship is, and how people are, raising huge sums for this sort of stuff, you got to step back a bit and see whether, look, is what I'm doing something that is really, really sustainable, okay? And that's important because at the end of the day, it's all about, like I said, dollars and cents. It has to add up again. If you're going to sell a great story and that story gain traction, but at the end of the day, there's nobody there to actually catch on to it, then you might get yourself into trouble. You know, so at the end of the day, you try to make a very genuine business. If you do a genuine business, you won't go wrong. I think you won't go wrong either way. I mean, it might take you a little bit longer to buy a Ferrari or whatnot, right? But you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a sustainable, real business model, then you don't have to worry about any so-called bubble. And I'll just open it up to one last question from the floor. Does anyone have any last questions? Yep.
We can hear you, don't worry.
All right, this question goes out to either of you. So you've had experience both in getting investors. So now sort of post-period, once you've secured your investors or your investment, I'm sure that there are expectations that your investors would have in terms of, you're saying like 5 times in a certain timeline, ROI, et cetera, et cetera. Have any of you faced any challenges in meeting these expectations? And if so, how were you able to overcome them?
Okay. For me, I think learning is everyone tells you always buffer, right? So as much as I buffer, I still kind of mess up. So I think I can close around in 3 months, takes me 6, I think the check's going to be ready in 2 months, it takes 4. So as I will tell you, key things to do is buffer as much as you can. Okay, imagine the business as a baby, and if your runway says you're gonna run out of milk formula in 4 months, make sure you have a spare bottle somewhere. Like, this is your own personal stash, and keep that bottle somewhere. So I haven't had a lot of hiccups with the investors because I've always had that personal stash, but I've also run into misestimating how long it will take, like public holiday, damn, check doesn't clear.
Hari Raya.
So all these little things that you just don't foresee. That's one. 2, I mean, since we're almost ending, please do not raise in ringgit, raise in USD. It just helps with the term sheets, helps with the cap tables, and it helps with future raises. I made that mistake. My first round was in ringgit. I probably lost about 20% value by the time I closed the round. and I will never do it again.
Very good advice. Do you have anything to add?
Well, with regards to, you were asking about obstacles, right, with investors and stuff like that.
Meeting your milestones,
Yeah, so yeah, it's every day. It depends on. That's why I'd like to stress it out again that this is why it's important that you are in how would I say in good chemistry, right, with your investor, because you see, like what Shan said. Oh, I'm expecting that check in 2 months. You always come into the meeting with great stories, right? But then whether if you deep inside, 2 months is this realistic? It's going to be 4 months, right? But what's important is that they need to know what's going on. They need to be involved in the business, or at least monitor it, so that they know that you're not bullshitting lah. You're giving them real information, right? And you know what type of obstacles that you go through, so that they feel like, okay, you tried it for 2 months, it didn't work out, it came in for 4 months, but we know why, okay? So that's different from lip servicing. Lip servicing is like just saying something and it doesn't happen, right? So your relationship with investors is crucial. That would determine also how things would pan out and what type of things you target for and how it comes out. And if you talk about problems, there's problems every day. That's part of anything,
Okay, yep, I think that's all. Thank you so much for being so honest and so forward and sharing your experiences. And I'm sure that all the aspiring entrepreneurs in the crowd will be better educated for their future fundraising.
Okay. Thanks, Shan, Michelle, and Faiz.